How's it going, guys? So today I'm going to show you how to take a simple white portrait shoot background and turn it into a colorful background like this. So for those of you who didn't watch the last video, I had the opportunity to shoot for a professional soccer team in the studio for a media day style shoot. And the purpose of the photo shoot is my marketing team, we wanted to have assets and photos that we could easily use throughout the season for graphics, animations, and just different uses for these images. And so the idea behind the photos themselves was just to take it against a super plain background, you know, light the photos well, light the background well, and then this gives us the flexibility in the future to do different graphics, do some background replacements, and kind of just work with the images like I'm gonna do right now and show you guys. And we already have a couple examples of graphics that we've done, so I'll put them on the screen, at least one of them on the screen right now. And right now I'm just gonna show you a really simple background replacement, and this is one of those things in Photoshop that you're really able to do in a ton of different ways. There's different ways to select your background, different ways to just do kind of everything in Photoshop. And you know, I'm just gonna show you the simplest and easiest way, kind of the way I would do it. And I wouldn't call myself a graphic designer or anything like that, but I've done a fair share of background replacements for portraits and for a lot of landscape shots and stuff like that. So this again is gonna be focused on the portrait and a very clean, simple background. But these techniques can be used in a variety of different ways for sure. So let's jump into it. So obviously, step number one is going to be open your photo in Photoshop. So as you can see, it's a very clean background. We have a little bit of a shadow on this side, but it's really not that big of a deal. So pretty much what we're going to do here is get rid of this white background and get a colorful background. And so what's good here is, you know, there's different selection tools you can use. You can use the lasso tools, you can use quick selection, magic wand, whatever it is. Usually the way I like to work, especially for like landscape shots and really complicated backgrounds, is using the lasso tools. But I think for this image, I'm gonna go ahead and just use the magic wand tool to start. And I think I'm gonna have some issues with this area right here, just because the low contrast from the background to his white hat. But I'm gonna show you guys kind of how to fix it. So first, I like to work with a tolerance of like 15. And so you're just gonna select the magic wand tool and select a part of your background. It's not going to select the whole white background. So you're gonna have to hold shift, and you see the little plus sign that pops up next to the magic wand. And then that means you can just click on another portion and it's gonna add to your previous selection. And then as you can see here, I kind of already have a pretty basic selection, but like I said, we have issues up here with his hat. So I'm gonna fix that in just a sec. I'm gonna make sure this is selected down here. And just looking at it super briefly, everything looks good except that area I was talking about. So the way I'm gonna fix this is I'm gonna take the polygonal lasso tool. I'm gonna zoom in. And you know, we can see this is kind of a mess even up here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do this selection on my own. So I'm gonna go and hit, since this is like all selected, I'm gonna want to deselect it, right? So by holding Alt on PC, I'm not sure what that is on Mac. It might also be Alt, but I'm not sure. You can see the minus symbol that's popping up next to my lasso tool. And so that means when I click, I'm gonna be deselecting an area. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on this side. Well, this is a little complicated. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of clean this up a little bit first. And essentially all you're doing here, you're holding down Alt, and I'm just deselecting what I want to get rid of around his hat. I'm gonna connect it, and then you're gonna see I get this clean line. So then now I have to deselect this whole area here. So I think what I'm gonna do is just select around the hat like this. And then especially in areas like this, where it's very difficult to see because of the low contrast between the background and your subject, you just kind of want to do your best to see, you know, the line of the hat or the line of your subject. And I actually just got a brand new monitor, and it's a 4K beautiful monitor. And so it's actually a lot easier than it used to be for me to do this, because sometimes I would struggle with stuff like this. And if it's not perfect, it's okay, because you can always just go back and fix it. So I'm gonna select around the stuff I wanna deselect, and that looks a lot better. However, I do have a little bit of an issue here. So Again, I'm gonna hold the Alt button and just kind of straighten out this line. It's really hard to actually see the hat here, but I don't think it's a big deal as long as I, you know, kind of get the proper shape of the hat, if that makes sense. And if you want to select more of an area like I'm doing right now, you want to hold Shift, and then you're gonna see the little plus symbol on the lasso tool. So I think that looks pretty decent right now. Now I'm gonna go and just kind of check the rest of the area. So I'm gonna show you how to fix all these hairs in just a second, because obviously hair is a very tough area when it comes to selecting, just because obviously you can see through the hair and it's very thin strands and all of that. So I see down here I also have an issue with the collar, and this is all stuff you want to double check ahead of time, just because you don't want to deal with it later. So I'm going to start down here with the sleeve, and again you want to do the deselection, so hold Alt, select around, and boom, we're good. So again, once you get to the part where you want to clean up your selection, your initial selection that you did with the magic wand tool, you're going to want to use the lasso tool. If you want to deselect, hold Alt. If you want to add more to your selection, you're going to hold Shift. And so this is going to take me a little bit of time. So not to make this video too long or complicated, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to when I'm done with this part. So I'm going to double check my selection, make sure it's good, and I think I like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert it by going up to Select, hit Inverse, and now just my subject, just the model, Brian, is selected. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead, you want to be on a selection tool, so hit the lasso tool or the magic wand tool, whatever it is, hit Select and Mask, and then you're going to get like a representation of what's selected. So now I'm going to go ahead, you have kind of different options of you know, ways to view your selection. So I'm going to go ahead, I like using the on black for this, especially since it's a white background, and then I'm going to make sure my opacity is all the way up, and it looks pretty good. But the one thing you can tell is all of this fringing, this is called fringing, the fringing around his clothing and around the selection I made and everything, where essentially that selection, the magic wand tool and all the selection tools aren't perfect. There's always going to be mistakes, and there's going to be some area left between the subject and your selection. So now I'm just going to show you how to kind of fix these fringed areas. So then just, you can zoom in and see where the fringing is occurring. So you're going to go ahead and select this tool, which I'm actually not 100%, it's called the Refine Edge Brush tool. Didn't know that. But pretty much what you're going to do is select your subject really quick. I don't know why my Photoshop takes a long time to load when I do this sometimes, but I selected my subject, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint this refined edge. Paint this white edge, and hopefully it loads, and then you can see, yes, my selection's gone. Sometimes you get these weird areas, especially I find it super common in like corners where this kind of paints. So if you can't refine that sometimes, I'll show you how to get around it. So you can see I kind of have an issue there. So what I'm gonna do is hit this brush tool, and you're gonna want to hit Alt and pretty much just paint that away. So then that's my selection fixed. So again, whenever you have a trouble area like that, you can just hit this brush tool, and if you want to select more, you just hit Alt, and then you're gonna erase away the problem area. So again, I'm gonna hit my subject and just paint away at this edge. Again, I don't know why my Photoshop looks blurry when I do this. My laptop's getting pretty old, so that's probably why. And I think you can kind of see this area here kind of looks weird, so I'm gonna redo it. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller. Again, select on my subject and just paint away at this slowly. But I'm gonna go ahead and just speed up this process super quick. So again, all you're doing is you're using the Refine Edge tool, and you're just brushing along this edge to clean up the selection. So I'm gonna speed up the process and then get to the next part. So once you're happy with it, you're just gonna hit OK. And the next thing you're gonna do is just hit the mask button down here, and that's gonna mask, and now we have a separate subject that's away from the background. So now's the time to add the actual colored background. So I'm gonna go ahead, add a new layer, and we're gonna grab the paint bucket tool and select whatever color you wanna use. So for now, let's just go ahead with like a bright aqua. Go ahead, select the background, and now we have the colored background, and we're done. I'm kidding. this looks like crap. Not really like crap, it just looks really fake. Clearly our subject was on a different background and we just threw another background on there because there's no shadow or vignette or anything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and add a vignette to this. So the way I did the vignette, and I don't think there's actually a real vignette tool in Photoshop. I could be totally wrong, but I know there's different ways to do vignettes. The way I usually do it is I make a new layer down here. I put it above our background layer, and then I go ahead and select a black on the paint bucket tool. Paint the selection black, not the selection, paint the layer black. And now we have a black layer on top of our colored layer. Go ahead and hit the eraser tool and bump this up pretty big in size. That should be good. I'm gonna drop the opacity a little bit to like 65 and just start erasing away at the black. And my Photoshop is being super slow right now just because I'm running Streamlabs in the background to screen record this, and my laptop is getting elderly, so can't always keep up. But again, we're erasing here, and it kind of looks not the best because the black is so intense, and normally I wouldn't want to go for this look. Definitely I want a more subtle vignette. So once this stops loading, I'm going to go over here to my layers panel and drop the opacity down, maybe honestly to like 40%. Looks good usually, 47. Yeah, somewhere in like the 40 to 50 range, where it's obviously still visible. What I like to do then is make the opacity of the eraser 100%, make it a little bit smaller, and erase more behind the subject, just to give it a really clear, gradual vignette. And like it looks like a really good feathered vignette, and the subject really pops off the background when you do this. And I think that looks great. Again, you can play around with it. If you want less of a vignette, you can always just come over to the opacity of the layer and increase it or decrease it. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at like 42, that's fine. And then once I hide the layer, you can kind of just see the difference. It's very subtle, but it makes a huge difference in just making it look a little bit more realistic, like you actually shot this in the studio with this background. With this, you're pretty much done. And what's great about this, honestly, is if you just save this you can export this as a JPEG, whatever, but once you save it as a PSD, you're able to go back and use whatever colors you want. So let's say it's Christmas time, you want to make, a red background. This isn't going to look good. Well, don't select on the vignette layer. Make sure you're on the background layer, paint bucket tool, and painted red. That's very intense, doesn't look too great, but it still gives you the option and flexibility to do this, which is awesome. And this is really a very simple, graphic, photo, whatever. But from here, you can really build on it and actually make a real graphic, right? Like the one I showed earlier at the beginning of the video. So with that being said, we are done. I know I'm not the best tutorial giver. I know I'm not the best teacher. And I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of how to do this. And I know everybody has their own way of doing things. But I do hope you found this useful, and I hope that I was simple, to the point, and clear about my process when it comes to background replacements, especially simple ones like this. And if you haven't watched my last video, go ahead and do it. Really, I think the future idea I have with this channel, and kind of what I've been doing so far with the last 3 videos, is I'm not really gonna go out of my way to film videos or force myself to shoot things and shoot content that are just like out of the way just for the channel. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and whenever I am doing some sort of professional work, whether it's in the studio, like in my last video where I was actually doing like a POV style, like how-to video in the studio, and I gave like 3 tips on it and my thoughts, and kind of just talk through my thoughts throughout the day, and what I thought about the studio shoot and that whole process. Or even my first one where I kind of talked about how to do hyperlapses, because that day I was going to go shoot hyperlapses. So I figured I might as well just record and show you guys and show, whoever watches the video how I do my hyperlapses, right? And these are all methods that I use myself. And they may not be the best methods, they may not be the most professional method, but it's what I'm doing, and I might as well just, record it and then show you guys, whoever watches it and enjoys it and learns from it. That's awesome. So moving forward, I'm gonna keep doing stuff like this, where whenever I'm working, shooting something, shooting anything, maybe not always, but sometimes if I feel like there's value in it, I will record it and post it on here. And with that being said, I think we're done. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys do end up using this technique and post on Instagram, go ahead, and tag me at jfernvisions. And even if you don't, just DM it to me on Instagram and I'll take a look at it. Would love to see it. And that's it. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. Everything's going to be linked down below, so make sure you check that out. The soccer team's going to be linked down below as well if you want to check it out, as well as my marketing company, the Lime Agency. So make sure you read the description and leave a comment as well. Thank you guys so much. Create and repeat, and I will see you guys in the next one.